So, welcome again to the second of our Holy Habits discussions about how people are involved in serving, not only in the life of the church, which is almost a given for many people, but wider in terms of the community. And John, I know that in your work in Emmanuel, you're involved in lots of things like Messy Church and staffing and being a trustee and all that kind of stuff, which is all volunteering, and there's loads of other stuff as well, I know. But I'm really quite interested in your volunteering out of the church in the real world. Do you want to just share with us something about that?
Yes, I think probably the thing that takes up most of my volunteer time is citizens' advice in Barnsley. I was asked to be a trustee of the board back in 2013-14. And my immediate reaction was, well, this is not my background. I don't know anything about advice and guidance. I don't know legal stuff or finance. But after having conversations with the CEO, I thought, well, I'll give it a go. I'll see. And here I am still, and since 2016 I've been the chair, and it has been the most enlightening and rewarding volunteering I've done in a long time. As trustees and as chair, we take a strategic view of the direction, but in that we hear about the vulnerability of people, the difficulties that people face in their lives, sometimes the injustices and the unfairness, but also the rewards in terms of, literally millions of pounds in Barnsley put into people's pockets because they didn't understand the system or the system made errors. And that affects people's quality of life, it affects family life and so on. So you really feel that you're making a difference in that kind of role. And I'm continuing as chair until 2023. But it also, it's very humbling, but also uses some of my academic background around adult literacy, because a lot of people who seek help, not all, but a lot, struggle with the system and struggle with understanding what's demanded of them. And therefore, and of course, we use almost 50-50 volunteers and paid staff. So Citizens Advice itself is built upon a volunteer model.
Yeah. And then there are other things I know, what else is there?
Yeah, no, I was asked if I would sit on, I think every GP practice has a patient group that tries to kind of be the voice of patient experience within a general practice. And I was asked to be on that. And I said, yes, I would. Again, thinking about those people who find it most difficult to articulate or to communicate clearly, whether that is a second language or whether that's just because they struggle with the complexity of communication these days. And then I was asked from that group to represent the practice and wider on the patient engagement panel, which is known as the Patient Council, for the clinical commissioning group. And again, that is about thinking always about those people who are most vulnerable in the system and who struggle and don't understand how to make the system work. Those of us who are privileged, educated, know how to ask the questions. We know, how to deal with frustrations when it doesn't go our way. And you just feel those people need a voice and need a space, and we've got to advocate on their behalf. So it's an advocacy role in that respect.
Which I guess is quite similar to your CAB work, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And speaking out and standing up against injustice and for the vulnerable is what I'm hearing you say as an important part of your volunteering. Are there other things, the arts, health, anything else that you're involved with?
Yeah, music in the round. People were familiar with the Ensemble 360 that come regularly to Emmanuel Church, and we're always there to meet them and greet them. We always make cake, and there's 3 or 4 of us who do this. We often host musicians here, and in fact recently one musician said, can I bring my family for the weekend? Which is wonderful, because it's a tribute to the hospitality they feel from Barnsley. And then currently this week there's a huge chamber music festival in Sheffield, and we're volunteering on many days there. And that's about supporting the arts because they are so important to our health and well-being. They're exciting, they're interesting, and in difficult times we need things that take us to different elevations. And Beethoven talks about, if you listen to his music, you get a sense of the divine, and it's that aspect of our lives that often is neglected when we're in a very materialistic environment, or struggling in a materialistic environment. And so music is really important, and they rely on volunteers to help keep it going.
Yeah, and music can also be very challenging because it can challenge your sort of preconceptions about the world and how music should sound. So that certainly having teenage boys, I know that.
Definitely.
Finally, I mean, we've talked about very much sort of South Yorkshire and Barnsley. Are there ways that you volunteer overseas as well?
Well, of course, Habitat for Humanity is a project that's hugely important to us, and we kind of, you stumble across these things, and then it sort of becomes a massive part of your life. And of course, we've visited most continents, taking teams of people, building homes. And of course, the pandemic has stopped the travel, has stopped the support. We had planned to go to Dominican Republic with the team. We'd got some people from Emmanuel lined up and some young people training in leadership, and that of course just collapsed because of the lack of travel. They're hoping that maybe this coming year with that we should be able to open up again in Romania. Well, of course the need is huge, and even greater now because of the problems in Ukraine. And Habitat, we have kept in touch with Habitat throughout the whole of the pandemic. And they've regularly had meetings with us, but they've undertaken a massive piece of work, which is identifying empty spaces in towns. And they have been
in the UK?
In the UK and in Poland, which is again highly significant because of Ukraine. It wasn't planned around the crisis in Ukraine. It was already happening. But Warsaw was willing to sort of take on, where they work to look at empty buildings in town centres, work with local authorities, and they have developed are developing a blueprint about turning these empty spaces into homes, using volunteers in the same way that they do overseas. And they've just handed over a property in Dagenham, Essex. I think it's in Dagenham, or maybe it's Barking. Anyway, that part of London, which has been renovated and created into homes for young care leavers. So people leaving care, and we know they are some of the most vulnerable when they are sort of almost pushed out of the nest with nowhere else to go. And in response, working with the local authority there, they have developed that, and we're really, really excited about that, because I think it will engage more people in the UK around the philosophy of Habitat and how volunteering can help to transform people's lives hugely by giving up just a long weekend to help build.
Yeah.
And I know all those people who have ever built with us find it a really transforming and thoughtful as well as fun activity. So yeah, we're just hopeful that will take off, and everywhere we go we say, look at that building, there could be some flats above those shops.
Yeah.
There could be. And the pandemic has revealed that people don't need perhaps quite as many buildings as they thought they did.
Yeah. So just to complete, as it were, in terms of this reflection, and thank you for just giving us a bit of a snapshot of what you do, because I know that there's other things you could have talked about as well. Why do you do it? Why do you volunteer? And do you get anything out of it?
Do I get anything? People say, oh, you're so good, you give. And I feel quite guilty of saying, actually, I get far, far more. And yeah, you get excitement, you get exhilaration, you get challenge, you get reward. When we built, for example, houses in Tajikistan, and the young woman whose home we almost completed, we didn't finish, other people came and finished it, came and gave me her wedding headdress as a thank you. it brings tears to my eyes and a lump in my throat now thinking about it. So what do I get is immeasurable.
Mm.
It's fulfilling, it's rewarding, and I know that I'm living out the way that Christ said, get on with it, love your neighbor, care for the vulnerable. And if we all did that to each other, then the world would be a very different place. And, you know, seeking fairness and justice within our so-called sophisticated systems is also part of that. And the thing that kind of drives me is a line in a hymn that says, to give and give and give again what God has given you. And I just feel those are the, you know, whatever it is, whether it's energy, whether it's what I've learned through life, whether it's my professional skills or whatever, to give those, and they come back in shed loads.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. That's tremendous, and so so pertinent, really, especially as we begin this Holy Habit theme of serving. You know, serving is at the heart of Christ, and it reflects really the life of Christ. So I'm really grateful for your input, your energy, and just illuminating a little bit why you volunteer and where that is. So thank you for your time.
A pleasure.
And great to hear from you.